All right, we are back on Morning Line. It's our final segment this morning with Dr. Hillary Tindle from over at Vanderbilt. As you see, we're talking about vaping. Is it dangerous? I think we've established that in many, many cases it can be. The number up on the screen, if you have a question or comment, we'd love to hear from you, especially if you currently vape. But and we won't beat you up about it. We understand a lot of people, for an alternative, it's a good one for them. As far as the lung disease that we've seen in over 300 across the country, so this can be fatal?
It can be. As of this morning, there have been 7 fatalities.
Yes. How does it kill you ultimately? Your lungs just shut down?
The lungs, essentially, that's what happens. They fill up with inflammation. The body's own attempts to heal the lung can often drive more inflammation and interfere with getting enough oxygen.
Oh, okay. So, but this is different what this condition is. You likened it to a type of pneumonia. It's not emphysema or something where the sacs in the lungs aren't able to absorb oxygen anymore?
Correct. This is inflammation of the lung. That's all that pneumonia means. And this is a specific type of inflammation called a lipoid pneumonia, where there are little droplets of oil or fat in the lung tissue, and you could see that on biopsy.
How would, prior to the age of e-cigarettes, someone have gotten an illness like this?
Usually inhaling substances that are harmful.
Maybe in a workplace or something like that, and there are fumes, and that's...
Popcorn oil, things like that.
Really? Someone working in a movie theater, popping stuff up on a daily basis?
Probably manufacturing in the factory and exposures there.
I see what you're saying. Okay, that's if you have ventilation and everything along those lines.
Right.
All right, so 7 fatalities so far. Now, in terms of maybe someone watching this or seeing these news reports thinking of quitting vaping, all right? Just like quitting cigarettes, what are your recommendations?
Today is a great day to quit. You see my bias as a doctor. I think no tobacco products are the best case scenario. Cutting down gradually is an effective method if that works for you, spacing out the time between vapes. Using nicotine products that are clean and FDA approved and safe, such as patch, nicotine gum, nicotine lozenge. There's the Quit line. It's free in Tennessee, as in all 50 states. We have excellent counselors at the Tennessee Quit line. That's 1-800-QUIT-NOW.
Well, so you can, meaning like if you're thinking of getting started, but you just can't get the push, what are they going to tell you? Like they'll just help walk you through it, like what you were just saying?
They help walk you through it. They're non-judgmental. They'll talk to you over multiple times. You can request the same counselor. We recommend it to a lot of our patients in the hospital. Okay,
and is there any reason to believe right now, and again, I guess maybe, I don't know if it's that early now, is vaping or are e-cigarettes deemed less or more addicting than regular cigarettes? Is there a...
well, it really depends. Both appear to be quite addictive. Cigarettes are known to be highly addictive.
Sure.
And it's that getting high-dose nicotine through the lungs that's really key there. The route of administration into the body matters. Vaping was thought to be potentially safer than cigarettes before all this problem with severe lung cases and deaths. But especially with the advent of Juul and very high dose nicotine in 1 Juul pod, that's as much nicotine as a pack of cigarettes, especially in the body of a child or a young adult.
Gosh,
it can be highly
awful.
addictive as well. In contrast to things like nicotine patch or gum or lozenge, which are generally non-addictive because they're lower dose and they're a slower route of administration.
Slower and a much lower
onset.
dose. So, so to be clear though, is nicotine then, as we've heard all along, the main addicting property in a cigarette or in some of these vapings?
Yes, it is. The
that
main
is it.
one.
Okay.
Yes.
Is nicotine naturally occurring in tobacco?
Yes.
Okay, now we've seen stories, of course, the Insider and others, where there was talk of companies maybe infusing even more into it.
Correct.
So it's naturally occurring. So I can see in cigarettes, well, it's there. Okay, well, it's a pain to take it out. We'll just leave it there. And of course, it addicts people, so we get more business. Couldn't these e-cig companies make a cartridge that has no nicotine in it? Because they're putting that in. It's just a vape. It's a fluid that they've put together. Could they just put some other with no nicotine in it?
Non-nicotine electronic cigarettes are available, but again, it's a problem of regulation. You mentioned loosely regulated in the past. The label doesn't always match the components that are actually in the product. So what we see and what we've seen in medical research is many of the quote non-nicotine electronic cigarettes actually contain nicotine.
But to do that with an e-cigarette, unlike a tobacco plant that grows and it's just there, it has to be added.
Correct.
So they're lying. Well, they either are
untrue,
they're
yes.
either putting it in or they're not.
Right. The
And
labeling,
so if they're putting it in and say it's nicotine free, they're lying.
the labeling can be inaccurate, and that's a key point for consumers.
Would that be a difference to have a product, if someone did find a reliable product that had no nicotine in it? Is the nicotine the harm in this? I guess we've also talked about flavors, the THC.
Yeah,
the nicotine, it may addict you to it, but is nicotine maybe the thing damaging the lungs?
Nicotine does not, nicotine itself does not damage the lungs. The damage that's happening with these severe pneumonia cases seems to have something to do with the oils, possibly vitamin E acetate containing oils or other oils in the THC or the flavoring or the e-liquid itself. Nicotine itself is it's problematic in that it's addicting, but when it's used in patch form or gum form or lozenge form, it's actually not addicting and is much safer and a way to get off of these products.
What do you think is going to happen? I'm just going to ask you as we move forward. Do you think, I assume, we're going to see more cases of this lung disease?
I fear that we are, and the CDC has also said this. There may actually be more cases that were missed because this is a relatively new phenomenon that's just come up over the summer. I fear that there will be more cases. I think we're going to see a lot more regulation by the FDA, which has now moved to potentially ban flavoring in e-cigarettes. And even at the presidential administration level, at the federal level, we may see more regulation of electronic cigarette products.
Well, you know, my concern is with cigarettes, we have this long track record, so we now know what it does.
Right.
This is still relatively new if it goes back to just 2004. Think about it. Cigarettes and tobacco products have been around for centuries.
40s, yeah.
Just 2004, and the boom of the product really just hitting in recent years with young people. We're talking about this lung disease. I'm wondering, for folks who vape for years, and I'm talking maybe 2 or 3 years, what other things are going to surface? And I'm telling you, this lung disease is not going to be the only ill effect that comes out of vaping. Some other stuff is going to come along. Weird stuff, different from the stuff that you see happening with cigarettes. That's my fear, that there's going to be even worse coming up.
And I think that fear is shared by physicians, by public health officials.
And we just don't know.
Parents. Parents are very worried for their young people. We don't have the safety information. And that is one reason that e-cigarettes in this country are not approved by the FDA to help people quit smoking, because we don't know enough about their safety. In fact, we're even more worried now with these 380 cases and 7 deaths. And we don't know enough about their effectiveness to actually help people quit. That has not been established.
Can't you imagine if this gets worse and there's some real serious problems that come up, that people start smoking cigarettes to get off e-cigs?
Well, and that has been the case.
Let's just flip it over.
And
that would be awful.
That's a really key point. I'm glad you brought that up. So if anybody is listening and watching, is vaping now and wants to quit vaping, turning to regular cigarettes is not the answer.
And some people may think this. They say, well, at least cigarettes, I'm going to get emphysema when I'm 70. I just assume not get this lung disease next year. And so they say, well, I'm going to quit this. I'm going to go back to cigarettes. Don't.
And that has happened. Do not do that. The better way is to use safe, effective nicotine products and counseling through this Tennessee State Quit line.
Yeah, because if you've actually already weaned yourself off cigarettes, okay, well, now your next battle is to get off the e-cig. As opposed to, I'm just curious, you mentioned in this country with the FDA, have you done any research at all in other countries? Are you aware, is e-cigs a big thing in Europe to this degree now?
In England, they actually are part of cessation devices to help people quit smoking. So there's a real difference according to countries around the world in how they handle and think about e-cigs.
Oh, so, okay, have they noticed some of the same problems that we have with the lung disease, or is this something now with the flavoring that's unique to the United States?
That's a great question. To my knowledge, there are not cases, but I would have to look that up. I know that they're not seeing the same exact epidemic as we are here.
It's a worldwide phenomenon, though. And it's
It is.
And you do wonder, at some point, e-cigs will be regulated, and maybe with time, as with tobacco, it tails off, and then you're going to go, what next? It is truly amazing when you think about it. When they first came out, I still remember, and you said it was 2004. I didn't realize it was that long ago. The first one started. seeing some guy holding this thing, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Way more bigger and uncumbersome than a cigarette, frankly.
Right.
Less elegant, if you want to call it that. But I was just like, there you go.
Yeah.
Tobacco's dying, and they came up with something else to hook people.
Well, and this is the general concern, especially since over 1 in 4 high school students nationwide report that they're vaping regularly currently. Is this just the next generation of tobacco addicts? And you hear these heartbreaking stories of 15-year-olds and 18-year-olds saying, I can't get through a day without my Juul. I don't feel good. I want help. I'm trying to get off.
Right.
And when you start hearing teenagers saying that, you really feel for them and want to help.
Oh, I agree. By the way, I hadn't thought of this, though. With vaping, if there's a positive effect, not positive, but something different than cigarettes, is there a secondary secondary vape issue?
So, like breathing.
Yeah, I'm just
the
saying,
vape
we all
from
know about
somebody.
secondary smoke.
Yeah.
I may not smoke, but if I'm rooming with a guy that smokes all the time, as I did at one point in college, it's like, I'm sucking it in too. It's not good. Same thing with vaping?
There is a second, I mean, you breathe it in. If you're standing, you can see the clouds.
Yeah.
They're very visible. But there's much less medical research on the effects of secondhand vaping, so to speak,
Right.
compared to what we know about secondhand smoke, which is clearly detrimental, cancer-causing, stroke, and heart attack causing.
Okay, so secondary vaping, maybe not as much. I'll say this with vaping too, unless there's flavoring, is it scent-free maybe the smoke when it comes out? I'm just wondering if that's something that you could do more in secret, and people, in the old days, if someone's smoking cigarettes in the bathroom, you're going to smell it. If you're vaping, maybe people aren't as aware that you're doing it?
Certainly with the pods, like the Juul pods, kids are, turning and pretending they're getting something from their backpack and they can vape in class. So there is a hidden
So you're not
factor
seeing,
to
you're
it.
not seeing the puff of smoke, and you're not
Correct.
smelling as quite the strong
Correct.
smell.
Yes.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Dr. Tindle, thank you.
Thank you so
for coming
much.
on. It is a
Great to be
pleasure.
with you.
If there are more developments on this, I'd love to have you back
Sure,
on
we'd be
again.
happy
You
to.
do a terrific job.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take a break. I'll be back with a programming note about tomorrow right after this.